It's Tuesday, the 31st of August. My name is Juan Brown. You're watching the Blanco Lirio channel. And here's a screenshot I took from yesterday, CalTopo map of the situation with the Caldor fire. And we're going to compare that to today. So yesterday, remember, this portion of the Caldor fire was hung up, so to speak, right at Echo Summit and was about to spot down below Christmas Valley. Today, this is what it looks like. So it's moved about 5 miles overnight from, it's spotted, just as we talked about yesterday, it's spotted down from Echo Summit, and it's spotted mostly over the top of the Christmas Valley location right in here, and is now moving, continuing to move to the north and the east, following the basic pattern of the fire and slightly bending a little bit more to the north, being pushed slightly by the southerly winds. So this represents potentially the best situation, the best outcome of a bad situation, the potential Goldilocks scenario, whereas this fire came down out of the mountain at night, about 9 or 10 p.m., was the reports of this fire having crossed over Christmas Valley. That means that the winds were at the least and the fire activity was at its least strength. That allowed a lot of the fire crews down here on the floor of Christmas Valley to do direct structure protection of many of the structures here in Christmas Valley. Now, we don't know the situation this morning of how that played out, but I think we're going to find that a lot of those structures ended up surviving in the Christmas Valley. Now, the yellow up here that you're seeing on the CalTopo maps, I've turned on and off the structures layer. So that's the homes. So the VERS and MODIS satellite is picking up quite a bit of heat signatures right here in the Myers area. Let's turn on the structures again. All these homes in the Myers area and right along the edge of Pioneer Trail right here. But this is high terrain up to the east of here. And what I'm hoping, what the plan is today, I hope, is that this high terrain pulls the fire up away from these structures. We've got a prevailing wind. Stand by, let me pull up that wind here for you. Here on Windy, you can see we've got a prevailing wind, and this has been the case overnight, of just about 5 knots, kind of out of the southwest. But as the day progresses, this wind is going to turn slightly more towards the southwest. So it's going to push that fire, the alignment of that fire, more along with the topography. The fire is going to want to run up this topography, and if it gets hot enough, that fire will produce its own wind and weather and pull itself on up that higher terrain and hopefully spare a lot of these houses along the Pioneer Trail and the Myers area. Again, we're going to have to wait and remain to see how this plays out, but I suspect this high terrain will hopefully pull this fire away from the structures here at South Lake Tahoe. But eventually, somebody's going to get whacked at some time. We just don't know at what time will the fire end up back in a highly populated area, at what time of day it will hit the next population area. But in this case, it looks like we lucked out that the fire moved through a very densely populated area at night and is going to take off again today up in this higher terrain. Now let's look at the second head of the fire, if you will. This Caldor fire is basically in 2 sections now. We've got this other section down here on Highway 88. The fire's been primarily bifurcated by the Caples burn. Let me pull up fire history. Boom, right in there is the old Caples fire. And look at that, believe it or not, prescribed fire actually works. From the 2019 Caples prescribed burn, which actually turned into a bit of a wildfire, has bifurcated or split in 2 the Caldor fire. So over here on Highway 88, remember yesterday we were looking on Channel 3 I was able to get on Channel 3 a little bit and help explain about the air attack on the fire. But yesterday, the air attack, they were able to lay some retardant down here on the south side of Highway 88, as Highway 88 is one of the containment lines for the fire. But it looks like the fire has spotted a bit over Highway 88. But as this fire gets into this higher granite terrain, it becomes more spotty and a bit more scattered over on this flank of the fire. Meanwhile, it's going pretty good up here towards, well, this would be Caples Lake area and around Caples Creek, around the old 2019 Caples fire burn. But that's going to head off over here into this direction and into much less populated terrain. However, there is this whole series of cabins and structures here along Caples Lake that is clearly in harm's way, and depending upon what time of day this fire hits this area will determine to a large degree the outcome of the structures in this area. Because as the day wears on, the wind picks up, so does the fire intensity. Last night, Elias Fuñoz of the Union newspaper was on the ground and was able to report the fire crossing over Highway 89 over the top of Christmas Valley. And this morning, Brian Hickey of KCRA was able to report this direct attack structure protection of these cabins right down there on Highway 89 in the Christmas Valley area. So again, the fire is of low enough intensity as it passes through this time of night and the morning to where firefighters can make a stand on these structures in Christmas Valley. The fire is not so intense that it just drives them out of there. So we may have some structures saved. We may have a lot of structures saved, hopefully, in the Christmas Valley. How it plays out today, though, with these spot fires remains to be seen. And we're in 2 more days of critical red flag warning fire conditions, primarily because of the low humidity and the high winds for today, Tuesday, and tomorrow, Wednesday. Here's the Google Map terrain view showing Myers right here on South Shore Lake Tahoe. This fire is paralleling Pioneer Trail, that's this road right here, and heading towards Heavenly Ski Resort. And if we look down to the street view, here right on the corner of that neighborhood in Myers, there's the kind of fuel loads you're talking about in this area. And boy, this looks just a lot like the neighborhood right here, my neighborhood here at headquarters. A lot of similar fuel loading, though this is at a bit higher elevation. Let's take another look down here, right at the edge. And back behind here is the higher terrain that hopefully will draw the fire away from these neighborhoods. So looking at the winds today on windy using the NAM model, 8 a.m. right up here in the Tahoe Valley area. Let's move it right about to there. We got 5 knots currently. And we're looking at those winds to pick up. There's 13 knots at 1 p.m., 14 knots at 3 p.m. So there's your peak fire activity from 3 through 5 at 14 knots, and then dying off by 7 p.m. So another critical firefighting day based on these red flag warning winds for the South Lake Tahoe area. But the wind direction looks pretty favorable to moving this fire away from South Lake Tahoe. Currently, CAL FIRE is calling this at 191,000 acres. I think it was about 175,000 acres yesterday. So what's that? An increase of 15 to 20,000 acres overnight, 16% contained. All that containment is way down there on the Placerville side of the fire, on the west side of the fire. And here's the big picture of what the fire looks like on INCIWeb. Down here on Highway 88, we're seeing a lot of spotting down here along the highway. Again, as this fire gets into that more granite sort of structure there in that portion. But we've seen a lot of growth right up over the north of Silver Lake towards Caples Lake. Again, going around the Caples Creek burn from 2019. And then this is the the most dangerous part of the growth we're talking about, closest to the populated areas, spotting over Christmas Valley and heading off towards this direction. Up in here, this is mostly granite. Don't expect to see a lot of movement along that front there. Here you can see the granite around the Echo Lake area, and here you can see all the fuel that hopefully this fire will want to consume, pulling the fire away from Myers and up towards Heavenly Ski Resort. Again, it's going to end up back up in the granite at the top of these peaks, but where it ends, nobody knows. Is it going to continue on all the way over towards Kingsbury and 207? Eventually, like most of these fires, they've been making a run all the way out to 395 in the desert beyond the mountains before petering out. CAL FIRE, I think, had a estimated containment date of 8 September. We'll remain to see how that plays out. The Reno Air Races, located just a few miles to the north here at Stead Airport, are still planning on going ahead with the show. That's still, 2 weeks away, so a lot can happen by then. So thanks so much for your support of this channel, especially over on Patreon, to make this content possible. See you here.